Thank you very much, Maria. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the upper quarterfinals. I'm Ailey Loney alongside Cedric Phillips, and we are going to see a battle between the old guard and the up-and-comers here between Raphael and David Inglis. I'm looking forward to this matchup very much so, because coming into this tournament, Cedric, these two decks were definitely the decks to beat.
They very much were. You know, coming into this event, as you mentioned, is it Phoenix? We heard David Inglis talk about it. He knew it was going to be a very heavily played deck. He didn't really want to play the deck, but he ultimately ended up playing the deck because it was the best thing that he and his team could find. On the flip side of things, however, Levy breaking out here this weekend insofar as this Jeskai Turns deck has proven itself to be, I think, the deck of the tournament and probably the best deck in Historic coming out of this tournament with 5 copies in this top 8. So we're going to see what are arguably the 2 best decks in Historic right now slug it out all day long, and what better place to kick things off than with these 2 awesome players to see who's going to move forward in this matchup.
Wholeheartedly agree with you, Cedric. I think that this Jeskai Turns deck is the deck to beat. Certainly seems so, as there are 5 copies of it in this top 8. But don't count out the Arclight Phoenix, as we have seen some crazy turns from them. If the draws go well for David Inglis, he could get this game over and done with quick. So let's take a look at the opening hands here. Pretty nice one there for David. I think we've seen a mulligan here from Levy. So going to send 1 card back to the bottom of the library.
When I take a look at Inglis's deck list, especially for game number 1, one of the things that I'm always looking for from this Is It Phoenix deck is just the amount of counter magic that they have access to. Especially when you're playing against a deck that has Indomitable Creativity and Mizzix Mastery. You're going to want to be able to counter those spells if possible in game number 1, and you're not really going to find much counter magic there. Looks like just 1 main deck copy of Mystical Dispute is what I'm seeing from Inglis here. I know that when we were watching a player like Alexander Hayne decided to have less threats and access to a little bit more counter magic on the weekend, excuse me, didn't work out for Hayne, unfortunately for him. For Inglis and his team, way less access to counter magic, looking to be a little bit more proactive. So we'll see if that proactivity is something that's going to work for him here in game number 1 before we get to that sideboarded game.
Tricky decision there for Levy. Eventually decides that Fire Prophecy will hit the bottom of the library and kick things off with a Dwarven Mine. So foregoing that little token there, but it's going to be a bit of a tricky ask to get 4 mountains down on this battlefield, 3 mountains down on the battlefield. So just happy to get that Dwarven Mine down. Spire Bluff Canal there from David Inglis. Kicks things off with a mountain again for Levy. So both players just getting their lands sorted out here.
Lightning Axe actually a very, very important card in this matchup. I do want to highlight that one that Inglis does have in his hand, because it's not like Raph's deck plays a lot of threats, but one of the threats that he does play, of course, is Velomachus Lorehold, and that one is extremely Lightning Axeable. So if we see an Indomitable Creativity resolve and bring a Velomachus Lorehold onto the battlefield, that Lightning Axe is going to be able to take care of it pretty easily here. So you can't really see that threat being a go-to in this particular game. Stranger things have happened. We'll see how the game does shape up, but you can at least say that for right now, Inglis does have an answer to the powerful dragon.
He does indeed, as we see Levy working his way towards that goal of getting Velomachus Lorehold down on the battlefield. Prismari Command, a way to create a treasure token, which would line him up nicely for a turn 4 or turn 5 Indomitable Creativity, depending how he wants to play this. But this little Sprite Dragon is quite the threat. It looks pretty innocuous now, but if we start chaining a bunch of spells together, you gotta think that that has to be taken care of.
Yeah, I'm not going to be too surprised to see Raph take care of this on the main phase, because there is the ability for Inglis to be able to play enough spells in response to a Prismari Command dealing 2 damage to Sprite Dragon on his own turn to grow it out of Prismari Command's 2 damage. So Raph says, I'm going to take care of this right now in my main phase, kill that, make a treasure token, and let's keep moving along here.
All right, so now this is going to send some warning bells for David Inglis seeing that seeing that treasure down on the battlefield. But Sprite Dragon is going to get in here, the spare copy of it, in for 1 point of damage, and that Lightning Axe is ready and waiting.
Remember one of the things that I mentioned yesterday a lot when we were watching Is It Phoenix play? This deck, its hallmark is pressure, kind of backed by disruption, right? You get a big Sprite Dragon going, then you keep your opponent off balance with maybe some burn spells if they're relying on creatures, or some counter magic if they're relying on resolving a big sorcery like Indomitable Creativity or Mizzix Mastery. Right now, there is a Sprite Dragon on the battlefield, not the fastest of clocks just yet, innocuous as you did mention, Ailey, but the chances of this growing are pretty high. So Inglis has found his creature to be able to beat down with, at least for right now. The question is he going to be able to find anything to actually kind of finish the game off with, excuse me, in any meaningful way? And it doesn't look like it just yet.
Yeah. Also, unfortunately for Levy, no third mountain, so won't be able to sacrifice that treasure to, or destroy that treasure to Indomitable Creativity and get Velomarcus out. So for now, we're just going to go towards Mizzix's Mastery and recast Prismari Command from the graveyard.
And this isn't a bad place to be in. You know, Mizzix's Mastery, excuse me, a very expensive spell, sorcerer speed spell, but it does actually bring back a card here in Prismari Command. That's quite nice. Again, we're going to see Sprite Dragon get finished off. I think might have an opt here in response, but you see Sprite Dragon's going to get killed, make another treasure token, and then the triple red requirement here for Indomitable Creativity is now being satisfied.
So move to the end step, opting. Let's see what David Inglis finds. There's a Faithless Looting. Okay, can we find some action on the top of the library here? Ideally, a couple of Phoenixes while the guard is down here for Levy. Tough decision.
Well, looks like we're happy enough with Faithless Looting. Hard to be unhappy with Faithless Looting. Card is extremely powerful. Yes, no Phoenixes in the hand just yet, but can get some of the lesser cards out of Inglis's hand, like a card like Pillar of Flame in this matchup, and replace it with ideally something significantly better.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. That's something significantly better. Finding a Sprite Dragon as well as an Arclight Phoenix off the top of the library. So Arclight Phoenix will be the easy discard here. What is the second card we want to get rid of? Is he able to chuck a land now, or is it going to be Pillar of Flame?
I think it is between land and Pillar of Flame. Pillar of Flame, not the most attractive card in this matchup, as I did mention. And when you do have Finale of Promise in your hand, you know, if you want to be able to get a Pillar of Flame style card back, you can do that pretty easily. So Arclight Phoenix is, as you mentioned, step number one. That's pretty easy. Also, for what it's worth, Inglis's deck doesn't really need more than 5 lands to operate in most circumstances. So I could see him making an argument for discarding a land here because, you know, once you get to land 4 or land 5, you know, anything additional after that is completely unnecessary.
just discard fodder at that point.
Yeah, you just don't need it.
All right, so don't know if we'll be able to get the Phoenix out on this turn, but the Sprite Dragon is back on the battlefield, and that Lightning Axe, importantly, is still available to David Inglis should Levy go for the Indomitable Creativity now.
Now, it is important to remember that Finale of Promise is essentially a 1-card way of getting Phoenix back from the graveyard, right? You play Finale and then you get the 2 spells, and that's 3 spells total. So I mentioned that because effectively you have Finale of Promise itself getting Phoenix back, and then you have Lightning Axe, a card to discard with Pillar of Flame to be able to kill anything that's going on with Indomitable Creativity. So his hand is in a good position right now as far as taking care of Indomitable Creativity and then also getting a Phoenix back.
Yeah. Raph is playing it safe here, just going to go for the Prismari Command, dealing another 2 points of damage to the Sprite Dragon. He's just on bird-killing duty at this point, just making sure that his life total stays healthy. Finds a Brainstormer off the draw there from Prismari Command and is going to have to discard 2 cards.
Well, it seems like you could probably discard like a Creativity and a Steam Vents here. Maybe you want to discard the Triome instead. I think you're almost certainly discarding a land. The Triome's got some equity, obviously, because you can cycle it. Can't imagine a world in which Raph wants to discard a Brainstorm because, you know, it's Brainstorm. So
it's kind of a good card, I've heard.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. I'm curious to see if this is going to enter untapped. Yep.
Well, it is.
Yeah, valuing those treasures. Oh, okay. So keeping the 2 treasures alive means that Raph can... but then... Okay, that wouldn't work. We could get 2 copies of Velomarcus out at the same time. But then you'd have to choose immediately which one stays. So David Inglis could just clean it up. So unfortunately, that wouldn't work.
That's not going to do it.
Womp womp. Then I've promised, here you go, as you mentioned, is the 1-card combo, in essence, bringing back 3 spells and triggering the Arclight Phoenix. What are we going to go for here? Looks like we're going for Opt and Faithless Looting to dig a little bit deeper into that library. See if there's a couple more Phoenix hiding on top. Oh, get out of here, Mountain. We don't need any more of you, thank you. Okay, another Finale of Promise. And a Fry. Right, okay, well, double answers to Velomarcus now.
It's true. It's true. Remember, too, do want to point this out early in the morning, but this is going to be the case all day long and all weekend long. Players have access to each other's deck lists. And with that in mind, Raph's not going to be like, oh, I didn't know you had Fry in your main deck, or I didn't know you had Lightning Action in your main deck. And that's part of the reason that Raph is playing the game the way that he has. It would be easy to just kind of, shove all in, for lack of a better term, on creativity and get Velomachus and, okay, I win now. But the reality is that the way that Inglis's deck is built with Lightning Axe and with main deck copies of Fry, he is very much ready for Velomachus in maybe a more meaningful way that a lot of other players are from Izzet Phoenix this week. And that may have led to a lot of his success in making the top 8.
Certainly would think so, because that deck is just so scary. You have to be prepared for it, because you might not get another chance.
Well, there is Velomachus.
Hey, buddy. Now, Raph is just playing the 2 copies in the deck, so, we have seen a varying number of the creature in the deck. Some people playing the full 4, others just playing the 2 copies, so... in game 1, it's you're kind of all in on the combo. There are other ways to win with the Magma Opus and Mizzix Master Overloaded, of course. But you do want to protect this big threat as best you can.
You do. You absolutely do. It was definitely important there for Inglis to be able to find a copy of Arclight Phoenix. The Sprite Dragons got taken care of pretty easily. No real surprise there. Prismari's Command is great at cleaning that card up. But Arclight Phoenix is a card that's just going to hang around permanently, because you can bring it back from the graveyard and it's just going to keep cracking on in there for 3. So the fact that Inglis was able to find this card was pretty integral to his game plan, because right now, again, he's got his pressure on the battlefield. And though it's not counter magic in the most traditional sense in Lightning Axe and Fry, these cards are effectively counter spells for Velomachus. Fry's going to be able to kill it. Lightning Axe can kill a future one. And that's a really, really, really big deal in a spot like this. For Inglis, of just not letting any of this nonsense happen. So creativity is going to resolve. Velomachus is going to hit the battlefield, but it's not going to get the opportunity to attack due to this uncounterable Fry.
Yeah, a little unfortunate there for Levy. If this were just a Lightning Axe, he would easily have been able to memory lapse there, having that counterspell backup, but Fry says, no thank you very much, this thing's dying.
So this was, you said it. Having it be Fry is absolutely huge in this spot, because you see Levy with those copies of memory lapse, and they're just going to be completely ineffective in that situation. It's tough. It's tough for the Hall of Famer there, but it's great for Inglis and his Arclight Phoenix, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. This 3-2 in the air is going to just keep chipping away at Raph Levy's life total. Now down to 9. There's a Time Warp, though, and red spells don't do all too much against that. So what can Raph Levy find at the top of the library here? That's another memory lapse. Okay, all right. Raph, you got to deal with this bird here, though, my friend.
Yes, he does.
You're going to be a little dead.
He has no way to do that right now, so the pressure is very much here in Arclight Phoenix. It's going to come across for 3 more. Raph's going to go down to 6, so just a couple of draw steps left. Creativity, it looks like a nice draw.
Yeah, it does, but he's not going to have any way to back it up. He's just hoping that the 4 cards in hand are not ways to deal with Velomachus, because this is the last one that he can call up. Then he's going to have to rely on bigger draws like Magma Opus or Mizzix Mastery at this rate, because we can't even cast a Magma Opus at this point.
Yeah. So Raph's going to go for the creativity here. This is going to resolve. We're going to see Velomachus hit the battlefield, but once again, this card is not going to get the opportunity to attack. Lightning Axe with plenty of cards to discard. You see Raph, a little bit of frustration here for him, but kudos to Inglis and his build of this deck alongside his team, the players that did work on this, because they are very, very, very much ready for Velomachus Lorehold. Killed both of them seamlessly, and now there's another Arclight Phoenix.
Oh my goodness. Arclight Phoenix times 2, swinging in there, getting the job done here in game number 1. Raph Levy looks a little bit in disbelief there. He just had every answer for it.
The thing is, that one of Fry was absolutely brutal in that game, because as you mentioned right away, the memory lapse was there to take care of the Lightning Axe. So Raph had the Lightning Axe covered to get Velomachus, kind of getting it going and doing its thing. So it's absolutely brutal that the one of Fry in the main deck was found there from Inglis. But hey, when you got a deck with Brainstorm, Opt, Faithless Looting, you can afford to have a couple one-ofs in your deck, because you go through so many cards over the course of the game. you might, I mean, your chances of finding those one-ofs is higher than it normally would be.
For sure. And in sideboarding now, we're going to see, as Mani mentioned, that this is a very transformative sideboard. You see Velomachus has come out. We've seen almost all of the copies of Mizzix's Mastery come out. There go the Time Warps. One Indomitable Creativity come out. And in comes more of the shenanigan package. We got more counterspells, more uncounterable spells, more interaction, and of course, big old Nezahal, the Primal Tide.
Yeah, this is the card that, you know, so many players did not want to play against here in this top 8 is Nezahal. Some players have it, some players don't. The players that do have Nezahal feel extremely favored in this Steam Vent-centric top 8. Raph also having those 4 copies of Shark Typhoon in the sideboard to bring in, so he does become a lot better equipped here in Game 2 and Game 3 as far as a bit of a more reactive and proactive game plan, because the proactiveness here is now Nezahal and Shark Typhoon, as opposed to trying to resolve Indomitable Creativity and get Velomachus doing the Time Warp thing. And then the reactive nature, you've got copies of Fry, you've got Mystical Dispute, you've got Gust, you've got Anger the God, Scorching Dragonfire. So I think his deck becomes a lot more cohesive after sideboard.
Yeah, and if you take a look at David Inglis taking out all the red stuff and hello blue cards, because those can certainly put a spanner in the works here for Raph Levy's new game plan.
Yeah, and what's fun about this is Inglis knows how Raph is going to sideboard, right? Because imagine a world in which Raph goes, I'm just leaving in the combo, right? And then Inglis goes, well, I boarded out my lightning axes, I boarded out my Fry, I didn't board in my additional Fries, but I already know that you're boarding out Velomachus and Time Warp and all that other nonsense, so I don't need the cards that are good against that, and I'm going to go to this blue package that kind of fights against your blue package, and we're going to see how things go. I wonder how interesting it would be if Raph did the old okey doke of leave in the Velomachus package. Where's your lightning axes and Fries? Where did those go, David? Did you think I was going to sideboard into something else?
Oh my goodness, that would be such a heads up call. All right, game 2 is going to get underway here. Both players with keepable hands. They like what they see, and we're going to try to start things off here for Raph Levy, passing the turn over to David Inglis, who finds an expressive iteration off the top of the library. So just the 2 lands in hand, but as you mentioned, plenty of ways to dig through this library in Faithless Looting, Brainstorm, and expressive iteration from Strixhaven.
Again, that's the appeal of playing this Izzet Phoenix strategy, is you have so much agency over the cards that you see over the course of a game. Brainstorm, Opt, Looting, expressive iteration means that in most instances you're going to get to play a game of Magic. You're going to get to do your thing. You're going to get to see a lot of cards over the course of the game. Now, of course, the question is your game plan good enough in the matchup? And that's what we're going to find out here in game number 2 for Inglis, that he's already up a game here against the Hall of Famer.
I will say Raph's hand is quite heavy. There's a lot of chunky spells in here, but can obviously use that Magma Opus to get a treasure down on the battlefield and just hope that there's a couple lands off the top so that he can start making Shark Typhoons and he can start thinking about Indomitable Creativities.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, though, David Inglis's hand looks pretty darn good, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, the question is just how does he want to go about sequencing things, right? You know, you saw an Opt on the end step. He's got a couple of lands in hand. Hasn't played a land yet this turn, of course, so I don't think he's going to go to his discard step and discard Arclight Phoenix. That would be some next level big brain stuff. So he's going to play a Mountain here. We might see a Faithless Looting to kick it off, discard a Phoenix and something else. Again, the nice thing here for Inglis's deck is that he just has a lot of agency over how he wants to play the opening turns with these 1-mana card drawing spells and kind of set up his game plan around Arclight Phoenix while also keeping that Brazen Borrower in mind, because I do think, Ailey, that Petty Theft is going to play a role in this game.
Oh, for sure. Petty Theft and tokens is just like the most wonderful combination for you if you're the Izzet Phoenix deck. Those things don't come back.
This is an incredibly slow start here for Raph. Not that I'm expecting him to, burst out of the gates or anything like that, but we've got Fabled Passage on turn 2, Dwarven Mine not making a 1/1 on turn number 3, entering the battlefield tapped. You mentioned the ability to discard Magma Opus for a treasure. Wouldn't be surprised to see that take place here momentarily. But we're going to see a Faithless Looting here from Inglis to kick off his 3rd turn.
So the first thing is the easy pick in the Arclight Phoenix. Looks like we're going to go to a land as the 2nd discard. Doesn't have a 3rd 1-mana spell just yet to get that Arclight Phoenix out on the battlefield. Let's see what Brainstorm finds. Or is he just going to leave up the Ether Gust or Brazen Borrower? Okay, all right, playing it patiently. I like it. Now here's a decision for Raph. All right, you have 2 mana left up, David. What are you planning? Levy not going to risk losing the treasure token, just going to cycle Shark Typhoon for 0, so an invisible shark on the battlefield, if you will, and finds a fourth land.
Yeah, but new cards I think is more important because Raph was in danger of missing a land drop there. So able to find a fourth land there in Fabled Passage, didn't miss his land drop in a matchup where it's important to not do so. So important sequence of card drawn there for Raph Levy.
For sure. Steam Vents off the top here for David Inglis. Has the option to Expressive Iteration before the land drop to see if there is a land on top that he can play. Looks like we're going to go towards Sprite Dragon, though. Just present a threat on the battlefield. Raph Levy obviously prepared for that, as there's 2 Scorching Dragonfires, as well as a Fry to deal with this itty-bitty little critter.
Well, here comes some beatdowns.
Just tiptoeing around each other. I love these matchups.
Yeah, the sideboarded games are always kind of fun because it does very much feel like tiptoeing. Where the first game pre-sideboard does feel like kind of is my haymaker good? No. Oh, is my haymaker good? Yes. Okay, I win or I lose. Something kind of like that. Again, Inglis was a little bit fortunate drawing that one of Fry, but that's why it was in the deck in the first place for a situation like that. And that's, again, some of the appeal to the strategy is there's so much card draw. You're able to find a one of, like a main deck copy of Fry. Inglis right now, just kind of setting up. You know, I believe, you know, if I were to ask him, do you really care about this Sprite Dragon? I think the answer would be no. You know, if it lives, that's cool. If it dies, okay, not the end of the world. Shark Typhoon looking to take care of it is actually a really nice exchange here for Raph. I will say that.
Oh, yeah. Because now, shields it down for David Inglis. He does get to deal with the 2-2, making the Sprite Dragon into a 2-2. And in for 2. Here's a Steam Vents off the top, so the lands are flowing here for Raph Levy.
Yeah, but no, it looks like no real way to do anything with like Indomitable Creativity into Nezahal this turn.
Yeah, that would have been ideal.
Which is a bit of a bummer here if you're rooting for Levy to win this match. Now, he does have an answer to to Sprite Dragon in Scorching Dragonfires, so that 2-2 Dragon, you know, it'll be here for as long as Levy wants it to be here. We saw him take care of Sprite Dragon on the main phase in the last game, so perhaps we see that again.
Yeah, very likely to see that, just so in case of responses from David Inglis, because this little dragon can get out of hand real quick, and there are so many cheap spells. Scorching Dragonfire would ideally like to hit the recursive threats in the Arclight Phoenix, but if you don't respect the Sprite Dragon, you could die to it.
Yeah. And, you know, do you want to use the Fry on the Sprite Dragon as opposed to the Scorching Dragonfires? I think that's another thing that you have to think about, too. So it looks like Raph is just going to pass the turn back. Again, he's got 3 instants in 2 Dragonfires and a Fry to be able to take care of the Sprite Dragon. It's just more of a question of which removal spell does he want to use and when does he want to go about using it.
David Inglis considering the Expressive Iteration to kick off his turn.
One also important thing to note, don't want to forget this, that Petty Theft did get used this game to take care of that Shark token, so there is a Brazen Borrower over there on an adventure. We do see Brazen Borrower on an adventure, Faithless Looting in the graveyard, and then Inglis's Hand of Brainstorm Gust, Iteration in 2 lands. So a couple of different zones to keep track of right now.
Just playing through this turn very cautiously. Expressive Iteration is going to hit the stack after the land drop. Little Sprite Dragon is going to grow. Does Raph want to do anything about it now?
And I'm actually glad you mentioned that he's playing the Expressive Iteration after the land drop, because that means if Iteration does find a land, not going to be something that Inglis is going to get access to. We oftentimes see players play Expressive Iteration before their land drop in order to get that kind of value off of Iteration if they do hit a land. So a conscious decision to be sure. We'll see how it goes, but it looks like we got maybe a little bit of an exchange here with the Fry.
Yeah, Fry on the stack. Aether Gust can protect it. Aether Gust doesn't counter things, so Fry is able to be targeted by the Gust and send it back to the top or bottom of the library, depending on where Raph Levy wants to send it. So a nice little work around the uncounterable spell there.
Yep.
Now, in response, will we see another spell used? It looks like Scorching Dragonfire's gonna go for it.
And what I find to be interesting about this are, you know, how does Raph feel about this exchange? How does Inglis feel about this exchange? That's one less Scorching Dragonfire that Inglis has to be concerned with. Raph's going to draw Fry next turn. Maybe he might put it on the bottom, I suppose. So we'll see about how that kind of goes. And then we've got this iteration that's still left to resolve.
So Raph can use the brainstorm in response, but let's see where he wants to put this, if it's going top or bottom for him. Looks like it's going bottom, okay.
Okay.
Expressive Iteration is going to... Ooh, find 3 lands. That's icky.
You know, I guess in a weird way, it's not the worst thing in the world, because you do have Faithless Looting to discard him.
Yeah.
So it's not the worst thing in the world. But you know, it's not your favorite. Here's a brainstorm. We'll see if we can gas back up with this. And this is just an average brainstorm here too. So Inglis may be a little stuck here as we're moving ourselves deeper into the mid game.
Yeah, so 2 lands back on top of the library. 1 Arclight Phoenix is going to fly and start chipping away at Raph Levy's life total. Let's take him down to 13. Brainstorming response there for Raph Levy. Oh, gross. Ugh, 3 lands off the top.
Yeah, but one of them, actually, I'll say 2 of them are really good there in Dwarven Mine. So even though that is a land in a traditional sense, it's actually a great find here for Raph Levy, because assuming he's satisfied what he needs to a Dwarven Mine, we've got Indomitable Creativity coming up for Nezahal, and also a Scorching Dragonfire to take care of the Phoenix. This is kind of a dream come true here for Raph. And so far as that gigantic dinosaur is going to be hitting the battlefield.
Oh, look at David's face.
Yeah, this is fantastic news.
Oh boy, the opportunity to strike was presented to Raph with that draw. Finding the Dwarven Mine, which, haha, surprise, surprise, is actually a Nezahal Primal Tide, so that hits the battlefield. Scorching Dragonfire is going to take care of the Arclight Phoenix. Goodbye, you're not coming back. And now David is in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and this is the biggest fear for David right now. Nezahal Primal Tide is kind of the, I'm going to call it a mirror breaker, even though we're not in a traditional mirror right now. This is kind of the mirror breaker insofar as this is what blows open Steam Vents matchups. And we're Steam Vents matchups throughout this entire top 8. So for the players that have Nezahal, they have a huge advantage in the sideboard games.
Oh, and it's so good too, because every time David casts a spell, it's just like, oh cool, now I have a card in hand. Now I can exile my Nezahal and keep it safe if you do have anything to deal with it, but I don't. Like, what does David have to deal with this? He'd need to cost like 2 spells.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's nothing he can really do to deal with this. And this is every Is It Phoenix player's fear. This is the fear for the Jeskai Turns players who have commenced the end game as opposed to Nezahal. Nezahal, you know, whoever came up with it, whoever founded whatever, they have the best card for the mirror match. Yeah. They unquestionably have it. And these games, these sideboarded games, they're going to revolve around getting this card on the battlefield. And if Raph is able to do that, winning is pretty academic at that point.
Brazen Borrower is going to hit the battlefield here, and I guess David Inglis is just going to hope to race at this point because, yeah, that Nezahal, that's a big old dinosaur there. God, she's going to draw so many cards.
and the other thing that's tough about this too is that, you know, there's no clean answer. You know, Fry doesn't get the job done. Lightning Strike, not Lightning Strike, Lightning Axe is out of the deck. You know, stuff like that. And actually, Fry's not even in the deck either anymore, as we know, because he sideboarded that out and didn't bring his additional copies in because the sideboarded games aren't about Velomachus. They're about this thing. So for Is It Phoenix, there's no clean answer. There just isn't.
2 negates in hand, a little awkward there. No way to pump up the Sprite Dragon proactively. Gonna have to chip in here and just resort for going in for 4 points of damage. Does Raph want to do anything in response here? Has that Triumph, so can cycle that on the end step. But not really under that much pressure. He is certainly the beatdown at this point.
No, I mean, he might want to cast a spell. Maybe. Like there might be some interest in gusting the Sprite Dragon because Inglis doesn't really want to draw it next turn.
Yeah.
Because it's just a 1/1. And then if this causes Inglis to use some sort of counter spell, you get to 1, draw a card, and 2, then maybe resolve Magma Opus next turn, depending on how your draw steps come together and if you believe Inglis has Mystical Dispute or not. So,
yep. So we're gonna fight over the Sprite Dragon here. Nezahal is gonna trigger, draw another card, and all we can do here is just scry. Nothing useful drawn at the top here for Raph Levy. Another Triumph. So in for 5 comes the team.
So let's see, Raph falls down to 8 right now. There's only a single mana open. So if you're Raph, you just have to weigh things about like, do I want to try to resolve Magma Opus right now around Mystical Dispute? Like, is it worth it? Do I have to go for it? Anything like that? Backup copy.
That's always good.
I mean, it kind of makes you think that the first one's free. You're right.
Yeah.
Like, just kind of fired off. No, but I will say it is a little scary, right? Because let's imagine a world that Inglis does have a Mystical Dispute.
Yeah.
You cast Magma Opus, it gets disputed. Sprite Dragon turns into a 3/3. So now you have 6 power in the battlefield, and there's 2 Faithless Lootings in the graveyard.
Yeah.
That brings you up to 8 damage to win the game. So with that in mind, Raph has to really think about now on if he actually wants to cast Magma Opus or not, because if it gets disputed, he is effectively dead.
Yeah, that is a tough situation to be in here for the Hall of Famer. So Raph Levy's going to think long and hard about this turn. When does he want to deploy Magma Opus? Because next turn it's going to be... we're going to have the clean answer in Negate from David Inglis.
But the other thing, too, is that, Raph could just say, well, I'll cycle Triumph and try to get a little bit lucky, try to find something that way. But I think if you do that, I mean, it's just higher upside to try to resolve the Opus, I think.
Yeah, even just to clear the threat of the battlefield, because, I mean, risk it for the biscuit, try and kill the creatures? Not so concerned about face.
Yeah, so that's the situation here, which is, what are the ramifications of casting Magma Opus as opposed to cycling the Triome, drawing a mystery card, and what are the mystery cards that I can draw in this situation? He does have good, mystery draw steps, don't get me wrong, as far as removal is concerned, blah, blah, blah. But, Raph's got to weigh the equation.
If he does nothing, the Sprite Dragon becomes 4 power next turn. And
It can become 4 power next turn.
Yeah.
It can become more than that too, right? Like it really depends on what English's draw step is, because right now he just has a reactive spell. That's it.
Yeah.
And this is Raph thinking he has Mystical Dispute.
Yeah.
And the calculus there is if he goes dispute, looting, I'm dead, right? If that's his last card. Now his last card's action negates. Now here's a Sprite Dragon. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you cast looting from your graveyard, counter on each dragon, that's 8.
Yep. He's got no way to deal with this, so oh my gosh. This negate in hand could be the game winner here for David Inglis, unless we can find something off Magma Opus and Nezahal.
Yeah, I mean, so here's what's going to happen now, right? So Sprite Dragon resolves. Inglis, in order to present lethal, has to play Faithless Looting from the graveyard. So only 1 mana left. Negate is not in the equation. Nezahal trigger. So let's see what Raph draws first. That's a break. So now you got to respond, I think. And let's see what that looks like.
Oh, he's going to go for it. I think he's forced here to go for this Magma Opus, or he is just dead. He's got nothing else guaranteed to kill these creatures, so... Oh, is that okay? 3, 4, 5. Can they get to 8? Just those 2?
So now we Opus.
Okay, we're gonna tap the 2 creatures. That's cool. All right. 1 damage, 3 damage to face. Tap them. There's nothing that David Inglis can do, so now Raph Levy looks to be in the clear here with his Magma Opus.
Yeah, I find that whole exchange interesting because Raph did think a long time about just casting Opus on the main phase of his turn, as opposed to not.
Yeah, but there would always be the risk of another hasty creature coming down, and then he's shields down. He can't do anything about it. So I think he played that at the exact right moment to get the blockers out the way and hopefully not have a follow-up here for 1 mana.
Yeah, so this game is going to Levy. In what was
you could see his relief.
That was a bit of a nail biter. Again, I think the card that was just on his radar that he was thinking about the entire time was Mystical Dispute. And how do I work myself around that card? Do I cast that Magma Opus on my turn? And if I do, what happens with Mystical Dispute, which again would have been Sprite Dragon turning into a 3/3, flashback both Faithless Lootings attack you for exactly 8 and kill you, or do I wait until your turn and just respond to whatever nonsense you're going to do? Raph took the second route, worked out beautifully for him, and now we're on to a third game.
That was certainly a stressful game indeed. You could see Raph Levy just breathing a sigh of relief at the end of that one. So A very, very good game to start things off here at the Strixhaven Championship. This is our top 8. If you're just joining us, thank you so much for being here wherever you are around the world. We hope you are enjoying the show. It is David Inglis of the USA versus Raph Levy of France. And I want one thing that I noticed yesterday as we had our post-show meeting was that every single player has Jeskai colors in their flag. It's so on brand for this weekend because it's just blue and red everywhere.
It's a tough road to hoe for you players that are fans of swamps and forests in Historic. Things are
They can just be sad in Golgari. It's all right.
yeah, Golgari, Witherbloom, whatever you want to call it nowadays. Historic does not appear to be the place for you, at least for one weekend. We'll see what future weekends look like, but might want to take those things somewhere else.
Yeah, go take your cat oven and go make some food tokens somewhere else for the time being. Because it's all about the birdies. Oh, goodness me. And so David, deep in the tank here, just deciding a last few changes to make. Anything surprising here for the sideboard?
Well, one thing I do want to know. I love this about sideboarding, right? Is Raph just submits and he says, "Let's go again," right? Yeah. Not much to think about, not much to change. Just says, "This is my game plan against Phoenix. This is the game plan that me and my team have crafted that has been so effective for Phoenix over the course of this tournament that I'm not changing anything." Inglis gonna give it a once over, maybe a twice over. Just okay. Obviously, a very important game in front of me right now on the play for game number 3. Anything change for him? Doesn't look like much of anything. So away we go.
Oh, man, this hand would be so nice if there was an untapped land in it. Unfortunately, Sulphur Falls needs a little bit of help from an island or a mountain to come in untapped.
But still, I think on Inglis's side, good enough. You know, it's not the ceiling hand for him, but it is a kind of a medium hand, and medium hands are good enough in this matchup. So looks like we're going to see Inglis keep. You mentioned the Opt, the Faithless Looting, Arclight Phoenix, Iteration. And if he's able to find a basic for Sulphur Falls, life is pretty good. There you go.
Steam Vents counts. Steam Vents. There you go. That's the card of the tournament, right? Has to be. So we're going to see...
Hit your Steam Vents today.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Mountain off the top here for Ref. Levy also has a pretty decent hand. Has 2 copies of Brainstorm as well as Nezahal, the Primal Tide, Magma Opus, as well as Expressive Iteration. So... lots to do for both players here as we get things underway. Just gonna get our lands down and say go.
So for Inglis, waiting for the third turn to do anything of relevance. So we're gonna kick things off with an Opt. Because this is the turn where you can try to triple spell. Opt, Looting, X, all for 1 mana.
Yeah, Sprite Dragon.
Well.
Hey, little buddy. How are you feeling about this game? You wanna come boogie?
Yeah, what do I want to do with you? Let's give this a think.
Because that could be the follow-up, but then you risk not having the 3 spells next turn.
Looks like he wants that threat. Okay, so do we just go to Sprite Dragon now? Yeah, okay, so we're not gonna even go to Faithless Looting nonsense just yet. Just gonna do a little baby Sprite Dragon, see if this thing can get maybe a little bit bigger, any of that stuff. Raph finding an answer there in Prismari Command, but both copies of Nezahal in the grip.
These dragons are super eager, but their call time isn't until a couple lands' time. So let's send those back and hopefully find a shuffle effect. Expressive Iteration can do that.
Yeah, you know, this is a touch awkward because you want the dragons in your deck. That much is obvious. And Raph does have another copy of Brainstorm to be able to put the dragons in the deck. But we might see, well, we've seen this from Raph before, so this is consistent, of just main phase, blow that up, make a treasure. But Raph's draw step is going to be the other Nezahal. But don't forget again that he does have a Brainstorm in hand, so he can put it back, quote unquote, and if he draws a Fabled Passage, he can shuffle it in. So
that's what he'll be hoping for.
It's not the end of the world. That's a nice draw step.
Oh, Chandra, Torture Defiance.
I haven't seen that in a minute.
Such a good card. But just like, oh, I found land on top of the library. Haha, hit you for 2.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, it makes total sense why that card would kind of come in this matchup because the games get a lot more grindy after sideboard. Also, Planeswalkers are a thing that is difficult for Raph to get off the battlefield in a traditional sense. We mentioned how black cards aren't really seeing any play in this tournament. Well, black is the best color in Magic at getting rid of Planeswalkers, and you are going to get a little bit of a reaction there from Levy in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen of, okay, fine. You know, there's your Chandra.
Oh, I would love to see a Chandra ultimate. Just dealing damage every time he casts a spell. That's so good. Oh, here comes the clock.
That is in play this game, I think, a Chandra ultimate. I very much think that is in play. Again, Raph's deck does not have a traditional way of getting a planeswalker off the battlefield. So this brainstorm, pretty important, I think. This should be interesting. Okay,
do or die time. Raph, let's see if we can find something to get these Nezahals back in the library.
Well, those lands kind of stink. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So I imagine he's just going to put Nezahals on top. I mean, at least one, potentially both. And then we're going to have to transition into discard Magma Opus, make a treasure, probably, in order to rush out Nezahal to start checking this Chandra, is what I think Raph's game plan is. Because, I mean, the Chandra, it's at 5, goes to 6, goes to 7, ultimate. So that's a 3-turn cycle. I mean, so we got to get after that thing in an attack step within 3 turns.
So one Nezahal's going to go back on top. Looks like he's going to go towards Expressive Iteration to shuffle that in and hopefully find something else. That's a Magma Opus. That's another treasure, though, so that will help power out the Nezahal that remains in hand.
Yeah, so Nezahal's going to go... That Nezahal's going to go bye-bye. This land... Yeah, that goes into exile. That should be Raph's land drop for the turn. It does make you wonder slightly about the land drop for the turn because of Mystical Dispute.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just kind of thinking about that. Like, if he wants to cast Mystical Dispute on this turn, he'd have to burn a treasure to do that. And I don't think he wants to burn treasures under any circumstance because now it's a race to Nezahal this game.
Chandra plussing. Going to make 2 red mana here. Let's see what we do. Expressive Iteration is going to be a lead-off for David Inglis.
Really nice thing here for Inglis is because Chandra, its abilities both plus, you are now coming at Raph from 2 angles. You're working towards your ultimate with Chandra, which, if you've ever played against a Chandra emblem, you're like 95% to win the game, especially with this deck, which is all cantrips and spells and stuff, right? But then you're also building up your battlefield of creatures because this is the turn where you can probably work towards getting an Arclight Phoenix on the battlefield.
Yep.
So, and we can't forget that the insurance that Inglis has with a Petty Theft in hand too. I mean, we might see a Petty Theft just kind of get burned on a treasure token, something like that. So Inglis's hand is it's a nice one right now, and heaven forbid a second Arclight Phoenix were to show up.
It's what the kids call gas, I believe.
Yeah. The kids are the old people. It's one of them.
Well, either or. So Faithless Looting here finds another Mystical Dispute. It's going to send 1 Arclight Phoenix to the bin. And as you mentioned, there's Negate as well as Mystical Dispute for whatever shenanigans Raph might try next turn. But the clock is ticking now for the Hall of Famer.
And Inglis has found the winning combination here of, I feel like I'm beating the dead horse here, but of pressure plus reactive permission. Now he's got pressure coming from 2 angles. One is the Arclight Phoenix beaten in for 3 a turn. The other part of that equation is Chandra ticking up a ticking time bomb, if you will. And then he's got himself protected in multiple ways. Multiple copies of Mystical Dispute, a hard counter, a negate, and as I mentioned earlier, that Petty Theft, which can play a role in things in many, many different ways. So you gotta love English's positioning for this game.
Yeah, it's looking very difficult here for Raph Levy to win this. An Arclight Phoenix drawn off the top of the library. He can hardcast that if he wants to, but, you know, no real pressure to just yet. Does have Faithless Looting in the graveyard that he could get that into the bin with 2.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing, again, about this Chandra is that it can just provide 2 red mana.
Yep.
And then you can just cast it that way. You can also just, reveal the top card here. It's just a Fabled Passage, so going to deal 2 points of damage. I think we probably just see an attack here for 3 and just leave up this wall of counter magic. I can't imagine English is comfortable tapping 4 mana on his own turn. And if he did want to tap 4 mana on his own turn, I do think he would have added 2 red mana. Now, one thing English might play around this particular turn with the no attack is Shark Typhoon.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason I think we see the no attack there, because if he attacks, Raph takes it, goes to 9, and then we might see a Shark Typhoon get cycled and try to go after that Chandra. But also worth noting as well, Ailey, is that token that's hanging out over there, that can knock the Chandra from 7 to 6, and then it never gets the opportunity to ultimate. So I'm actually really in favor of the no attack by Inglis there quite a bit, because the game plan here is press that ultimate button on Chandra, and this game is over.
Yep, very much so. So mission number 1 here for Levy. He needs to get Chandra off 7 loyalty, or off the battlefield, ideally completely. How does he do that, though, with this hand?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, with the hand, I'm counting the mana here, access to 8. But with the hand that Inglis has, excuse me, it ain't happening. It ain't happening.
Magma Opus is available for Raph, but needs to play another land. Can get Nezahal down, but then Chandra just ultimates and every single spell just deals so much damage to him.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Raph's options here. Looks like he's going to go towards Dwarven Mine. Okay. Opus gets countered.
And Nezahal creativity will get countered.
Yeah, creativity gets countered by negate. Nezahal resolves because it's uncounterable, but who cares because it doesn't have haste. And I think Raph is coming to the same conclusion that we are here in the booth, and I think everybody is that's watching the program here, which is I think David Inglis has this game based off of this one of Chandra that he drew at the perfect time that came in from his sideboard. And Raph his deck has no clean answer. His draw this game had no clean answer to that card. I think Raph's draw was actually good against a lot of stuff, but it was not great against Chandra. And Magma Opus is going to try, but it's going to fail.
Yeah, this is all he can do. Last ditch attempt here to try and get the Chandra from ultimating. Just a reminder for everyone, when she ultimates, and she's gonna, every single spell deals 5 damage. And you can just see the look on Raph's face. He knows that this is not gonna resolve. Oh man, heartbreak here for Raph, but not out of it yet. It is a double elimination, so if you are rooting for Raph Levy, he still has one more chance. Here goes the emblem. David Inglis just needs to start casting his spells, and he can lock this up here.
Yeah, however Inglis wants to do it. A classic saying by a friend of mine, Greg Hatch. There's no wrong way to eat this Reese, excuse me, or Oreo, whatever you're putting in your face that's unhealthy. There's no wrong way to do it. This is Chandra's emblem doing its thing, and this game is going to end here momentarily. Very, very, very impressive stuff here from Inglis, who's can counter his own opt with a mystical dispute if he wants to. Kind of showing off here in this win.
So that's gonna do it for David Inglis. Breathes a sigh of relief and has won in the upper quarterfinals here. So congratulations to Tangrams. I bet he is super relieved to get through that matchup.